Experts say our officers are not trained to handle the country's often riotous protests. South Africa has 150,000 police officers, and yet very few have specialist riot training. Police now plan to beef up the training of public order officers. For some analysis on this, I'm joined now in the line from our Pretoria studio. Live from there, Gareth Newham, Head of Governance, Crime and Justice Programme at the Institute for Security Studies. Gareth, good morning. Thank you very much for talking to you. In your analysis, is this the case that our police are not really prepared how to, and are not well trained for riot control? That's behind what we've seen. I mean, in the last 3 weeks, 9 people have already died during protests.
Well, it is true that there are too few police officials adequately trained to deal with crowd management situations, particularly those that are violent in nature. But that has not always been the case. I think we need to look at the bigger picture, the roots of the current problem, where we see higher numbers of deaths at the hands of police and breakdown in community police relations across the country. Started really back under the tenureship of former police chief Jackie Sedebe. They hired 65,000 more people into the South African Police Service in about 10 years, starting in about 2001, 2002. And the systems for recruiting people, for training them, for managing them, all started to weaken at that point in which the leadership started to disregard the protocols, regulations, and procedure when they appointed people. So we saw weakening there. And this has been recognized by the National Development Plan, which said that we need to really start looking at how we appoint the senior leadership to prevent this leadership crisis. Because when you have a crisis problem at the top of the organization, the men and women, and there are many very good officers at the top of the organization, but for many years now, too many people who don't understand policing have been appointed to these top positions. They're not able to understand what training is needed. They're not able to make the kind of strategic decisions to ensure that the systems are in place to get the best possible people into the police service. Those men and women on the coalface of policing need to be properly supported, guided. They need to know they have good career pathing in the police. They need to be supported by their managers. And if you behave badly, you need to be removed. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Gareth, you make it sound like that's going to be a silver bullet. I mean, is it the main thing that if they appointed the right kind of leadership, people who understood what it is to be a police and what is needed, we will begin to resolve our problems in the SAPS?
There's very little doubt. The National Development Plan therefore calls, in its chapter 12, it recommends that there's a national policing board of both police and non-police people. It's multi-sectoral. This problem is too big for the current police leadership to deal with. It says that police leaders must be appointed in a transparent, open, competitive process, that you get the best possible leaders. They must be appointed only on merit. And then from there on, that new leadership team, once they've assessed the current leadership to see if they're appropriate for the positions they hold, can then start developing a clear plan of action. Right now, the police do not have a clear plan of action how to build community relations, reduce the numbers of brutality incidences, and ensure that the police that are working hard and doing the right things are properly recognized and rewarded.
So why has that not been done yet? I mean, the leadership in the country, I mean, President Jacob Zuma, National Police Minister Nathi Mthethwa, they are the ones at the end of the day who are responsible for appointing the National Police Commissioner.
You've asked a very good question. We don't understand why the best possible men and women are not pointed to the top of the organization. Because that would be the beginning of the solution. While you have men and women at the top of the organization who don't understand policing, who think that their job is primarily political, and are encouraging the maximum use of force, are covering up bad behavior of the officers, not making sure that the systems are removing those that are not policing properly and recognizing and rewarding those that are, you're not going to get a culture of professionalism in the police. And that is exactly what the National Development Plan calls for. It says there must be the urgent demilitarization of the South African Police Service. Professionals must be pointed to the top, and there must be a process of professionalizing the police, looking at the code of conduct. Now, there's no plan in action to implement the recommendations of the National Development Plan, so we must ask those questions. Those are hard questions. Why are the police leadership not implementing the recommendations of the National Development Plan as we speak?
Meanwhile, we see this perception of growing police brutality. I mean, post-Marikana, we still have that commission of inquiry going on, and there's also spiraling civil claims against the police. The independent directorate that investigates claims of brutality is also battling to cope. I mean, this is costing the country a lot.
Exactly, and in many other countries where there's been big police reform, it's usually been as a result of those kinds of indicators. Spiraling costs of litigation against the police, increased brutality, where we see increases in the numbers of cases of assault against police officials being reported to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. breakdown in community relations, which we're seeing in different communities. Those are all indicators that that there are too many people at the senior levels of this organization aren't able to solve these problems. It's not that there aren't good people at the top of the organization. It's just that there are too many who are not good enough to deal with these problems, and therefore we do really need now an urgent situation to establish that national police board of experts from across the board, not just within the police, and start appointing them, first of all, assessing the existing leadership, because we need to keep the very good senior leaders who know what to do in place, but those that are not able to fix these problems must be identified, moved out of those positions, and those posts open to a competitive process so we get the best that the police have to offer. And we have really good, experienced men and women across the organization who should be in those positions, and they know how to solve the problems, but they're not given a chance for political reasons.
Know more about your world.
eNCA.com.